Hi friends, I hope you are enjoying your time, and I'm sure you like the part 1. Now I'm going to do the part 2. Let us start with the case history, and I tried one thing in addition to of my keynote. I'm able to scan these slides with wonderful machine called the Morphle, and I'm going to share the whole slide images for you, and I hope you will like it. Let me know your opinion. And don't forget to see the WHO classification at the end. Okay? Thank you. Bye.
Okay, now I'm going to cases, and I think you all will love it. I'm not going in order. I'm skipping the order of the slides which I have given just to take it into the pattern analysis. Okay, so case number 18, breathing difficulty in a 48-year-old male, and this is the low power scanning shot, and I think you all agree this is predominantly pink with focal blue areas, and it's very difficult to say lung expect in this area. My one request to all the delegates, before putting the slide under the microscope, you see it on the naked eye. Okay, and this will definitely give you, this is a wedge resection, and this is predominantly scarring with the focal blue areas. Some preserved normal lung tissue is there. Okay, so with that we will go to the high power. In the preserved lung tissue, the fibrosis is happening mainly in the pleura and in the interlobular septa. Okay, so mainly in the pleura and interlobular septa, whereas here it is more like end stage and honeycomb. I will come in a minute. Here the fibrosis diffuse. Wherever in the preserved area, it is around the pleura, paraseptal, in the pleura, pleural and peripleural and paraseptal. Okay, so when you see this heterogeneous involvement, normal lung and fibrous lung, you have to think of usual interstitial pneumonia. And in that usual interstitial pneumonia, you can see the air spaces, and then you can see the fibrosis. And in the end stage, the fibrosis is so severe, it gets pools of mucin, and sometimes these pools of mucin are lined by respiratory type of epithelium. You can see the pools of mucin here, and this is more like pata, and you can see the respiratory lining epithelium. What happens, the bronchioles and respiratory bronchioles come up and start lining the alveolar spaces. That's why the honeycombing is there, lined by respiratory epithelium. The honeycombing is nothing but end stage lung disease. It's like cirrhosis of liver, where there are a lot of cystic spaces lined by respiratory epithelium, filled up with the mucinous material. I hope you all enjoy it. Again, if you go to this blue area, again it will be the same picture here. So these are all the honeycomb lung. Okay, pools of mucin with lined by respiratory epithelial cells. Now we will go back to the slide. So this is pattern 2, and you can see the septal fibrosis, some preserved pulmonary architecture, diffuse bilateral interstitial disease, subpleural and paraseptal, as I told you, patchy and heterogeneous. That word heterogeneity is very important for a diagnosis of usual interstitial pneumonia or idiopathic pulmonary fibrosis. And fibroblastic foci you can see at the periphery, and microscopic honeycombing will be there. So the diagnosis is UIP. Why the pathology of ILD is difficult, especially when I was in training, I don't know how to interpret, and because we don't have that many biopsies also at that time. But even when I get a biopsy, I'm afraid to look into the biopsy. Why? Because there are different patterns. I think you all saw this movie, Tasavadara, okay, where Kamal Hassan is in 10 forms. It's very difficult to know which Kamal Hassan is. No, in the movie it is easy to say which Kamala Hassan is playing in which part, but it is hard to believe that they are all the same person. Like that, they have confusing terminologies. See here, LIP, NSIP, HP, DAD, EP, DIP, UIP. Different terminologies are used which are confusing. Number two, it is not a pathological diagnosis. Please remember, the interstitial lung disease is not a pathological diagnosis. Whatever you see in the lung is only pathological findings. We have to correlate with the radiology and the clinical pictures. And relatively uncommon, and we lack a very well trained pulmonary pathologists, especially in India. The classification of idiopathic interstitial pneumonia, what we follow the ATS-ERS system, is major idiopathic interstitial pneumonias, rare forms, and unclassifiable. In the major, it is idiopathic pulmonary fibrosis or usual interstitial pneumonia, idiopathic non-specific interstitial pneumonia, respiratory bronchiolitis interstitial lung disease are associated with smoking, desquamative interstitial pneumonia, cryptogenic organizing pneumonia, and acute interstitial pneumonia. How will you approach interstitial lung disease? Whether you know a cause or it is of unknown cause. When you know a cause, it's usually due to exposure. It can be either occupational, asbestos, or silicosis, or it can be treatment related, radiation or chemotherapy agents. It may be due to systemic diseases like granulomatous disease with vasculitis, polyangiitis, granulomatosis, and Check-Church syndrome. Or connective tissue disease can also lead to interstitial lung disease. When we don't know the cause, it can be idiopathic, as you know, or others. In the others, we get lymphangioliomyomatosis, pulmonary alveolar proteinosis, Langerhans histiocytosis, pleural or parenchymal, fibroelastosis, and all the interstitial pneumonias I talked in the previous slide, they are also, we don't know the exact cause, so they will fall under the idiopathic. For every interstitial pneumonia, we have criteria now defined as definitive, probable, possible, and not. For example, when you see organizing pneumonia or granulomas, it is not UIP. I am here putting the example of UIP, like that we have for all interstitial pneumonia. So whenever you find see the slide, what are all the findings, you note it down and see whether it is under definitive, probable, possible, or not UIP. With that interpretation, you compare it with the HRCT. It's definitive in pathology and definitive in high resolution CT in radiology. Then it is usual interstitial pneumonia or interstitial pulmonary fibrosis. When it is definitive in radiology but not UIP, definitely not UIP in pathology, then it is not a interstitial fibrosis. Okay, idiopathic pulmonary fibrosis. This is how you have to interpret. Always you have to correlate with the clinical, radiological, and pathological. It is a multidisciplinary team approach. Okay, that is very, very important. For example, if you see this wall, like this dog, it looks like one boy and a female are censored here. Okay, almost there. But the real picture, they are walking well apart. So this is why you should not tell final impression only by pathology. You have to always correlate with clinical and radiological findings, what we call as triple test. Simple phone call is very, very important, and it is always better to sit with the pulmonologist and the radiologist. In that case, we will get a very nice diagnosis for the benefit of the patient. Now, we are going to case number 1, left lower lobe consolidation. Okay, this is the low power view. This is the airway. These are pulmonary. There is no much fibrosis, but there are some blue areas. And see these blue areas around the airways. And see this airway is associated with the artery. And see how nicely the artery is branching all along the airway. So this is a airway centered disease process. We'll go back to that slide, case number 1. Aswini, can you see the slide, Aswini? I'm just making sure that everything working fine.
Yes, sir. We are
Super.
able to see.
Thank you. Sorry to bother you, Aswini. I hope you don't mind. Whenever I'm moving from PowerPoint to slide, I will just check whether it is working with you. Okay, nice. So here you see this centered around the airway. This is the airway, and you can see very hectic inflammation around the airway. And when you go to some areas, there is some foreign body giant cell reaction. Just allow this slide for a couple of minutes. You can see the foreign body giant cell reaction there, and some refractile material. Unfortunately, I cannot make it refractile in this thing. When I put it under the microscope, some refractile material are there when I reduce the light. Okay, so hectic inflammation, some refractile foreign body material, and that inflammation is around the blood vessels. We have to think of aspiration. And by the way, I hope you all have screened the slides, but if you are not screened the slide, go back. It will be there for another couple of days. I will ask them to keep it until this Sunday. And if you click this Marfil, slide information will be there. If you click the slide information, you can get the history. 70-year-old male with the left lower lobe consolidation. And I also put the diagnosis, aspiration pneumonia. So first time when you are seeing, you hide the diagnosis, see the history, go back to the slide, see the slide, come to your diagnosis, and then see the diagnosis. Super. So this is pattern 3, and this is the refractile material with the hectic inflammation. Okay, so this is a aspiration pneumonia. Now we are going to case number 3, lung mass in a 64-year-old female. This is a lobectomy of the lung, and there is a big cyst situated there with the hectic sorry, I cannot say hectic inflammation. It is a necrotic debris filling up the fat, and you can see the same cyst wall lining here. Okay, so let us see how it looks. Ashwini, slide check. Working?
Yes, sir.
Super. So this is the cyst wall, and I am directly going to the money. And you know the gross picture, the cyst wall is filled up with necrotic material, and all the necrotic material is nothing but aspergillus. Okay, so they are all very parallel cell wall branching at right angle and septate hyphae. So this is a aspergilloma. You know there are 3 types of aspergillus infection in the lung. One is aspergilloma, other one is allergic bronchopulmonary aspergillosis, and the third one is invasive aspergillosis. So this also fall under pattern 3, cellular infiltrate. And this is the silver stain to nicely seeing the aspergillus organisms. So as I told you, it can be fungal ball in colonization, aspergilloma, previous cavity, for example, tuberculous cavity is needed. Then it can be hypersensitive reaction, or it can be invasive where it produces necrotizing pseudomembranous tracheobronchitis and it invade the blood vessels. Next case, case number 4, fever for 10 days, lung lesion in a 45-year-old female. Again, cellular infiltrate. It looks like a, lung is not seen. It is mainly fibrinopurulent exudate. Okay, some bluish material there. And so this is also pattern 3. Aswini, slide check. Just say yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
So as I told you, it is predominantly fibrinopurulent debris and oops, yes. And when you go to the high power, you can see spaces, ribbon-like spaces. When you see these ribbon-like spaces, you have to be cautious. Now this has become very famous, black fungus. Okay, so this is nothing but mucor infection, and it's extensive mucor infection. Okay, usually this happens in immunocompromised, especially the diabetic patients. Ribbons of translucent material. Okay, so you can see hectic amount of microorganisms here. So let us go to the slide. So this is the silver stain to show the extensive number of microorganisms. The difference between aspergillus and mucor, they will see. In aspergillus, the wall will be parallel, whereas in mucor, it will be non-parallel. Aspergillus, it is 90-degree branching, right angle branching, whereas here it is not 90 degrees. And in aspergillus, it is septate, whereas mucor is aseptate. And it can produce acute lobar, lobular or lobar pneumonia. It can produce nodules, cavities, endobronchial mass, fistulas, and again fungus bogs. Next case, case number 13, hilar mass in a 38-year-old male. Again, blue cells. Okay, so pattern 3. We'll go back. Slide 13. Aswini, slide check.
Yes, sir.
Aswini, if there is any questions, ask the delegates to put in the questions and we can discuss them. Because if I keep on talking, that may be boring to them. So whenever any question pops up, or ask them to type in and you can read it in between the cases.
Sir, so far there are no questions. If there are, I'll
You
let
let
you know,
the,
sir. Yes, sir.
yeah. I hope delegates will be hearing me. Hi delegates, my dear friends. Whenever you have questions, you please type in and Aswini will be kind enough to read it for me. So this is again a dense inflammation. You can see some lung tissue there, here and there. And it's predominantly necrotic and inflamed. And this is a airway, dense inflammation. And I screened the slide. I'm not able to identify the organisms. So I will directly go to my presentation because of the lack of time. This is nothing but coccidioidomycosis. And if you are lucky, but don't waste your time. I scanned it, and at the time of scanning, I can see these organisms. But after the scanning, I think some areas are not focused very well. I think the organisms are there. It's like a refractile cyst wall with endospores, and that are highlighted by the GMS stain. And this is nothing but coccidioidomycosis. Coccidioidomycosis, again, it can be present as a cavitary lesion or blood vessel lesion, or it may involve the lung parenchyma with lymphoid hyperplasia and eosinophilia. Fortunately or unfortunately, it is not very common in our country. Next is slide number 2. Fever for a week in a 25-year-old male with a history of HIV. With this power, and after hearing the talk so far, I hope you are all able to come to the conclusion that this is pattern 4. Yes? Hi, Aswini. Aswini, are you trying to talk something?
Sir, there was one question related to the previous case. Can I ask you, sir?
Yes, Aswini.
Yes, sir. So the question was, can you give us any tips for recognizing mucor in maxillary curate material when mixed with inflammation and edema? Asked by Dr. Raghav.
Okay, go to the blood vessels. Okay, the blood vessels will have vasculitis, and you can see the nice organisms in and around the blood vessels. It's more like angio-invasive. Okay, and that is the clue. Not only search in the areas of necrosis, go to the blood vessels if there are any viable area adjacent to the necrotic area. Because of the vasculitis, it produces ischemic type of necrosis and secondary inflammation. Is it all right, Raghav? Just put a thumb mark, Raghav, if you are happy with the answer.
Yes, sir.
Shall I proceed?
Yes, sir. Continue, sir.
Case number 2. Ashwini, find out what do they feel. Do they like the delegates? Whether ask them to delegates give a feedback in the chat box. Do you like this way of presentation? Ashwini, read out for me if it is there.
Yes, I'll let you know, sir.
Sure. So this is the slide. This is the transbronchial biopsy. And you can see the nice eosinophilic material in the alveoli. The alveolar septa looks normal. And go to the high power. Just wait for 1 minute for the scanning image to get clear. Can you see very clear, crystal crisp picture, Ashwini? I love it.
Yes, sir. It's very nice slide, sir. Very clear.
Yeah, this is very bubbly. Okay, so and they are not up to the alveolar septa. They are away from the alveolar septa. Why I am saying is, this is, you all know, HIV patient. This should be pneumocystis. Previously, what is called pneumocystis carinii pneumonia. Now it is Jervosi pneumonia. And their main differential diagnosis is alveolar proteinosis. In alveolar proteinosis, it will be expanding the alveolar spaces, and at the junction of the septa, they will have a crack artifact. Okay, those two are very important things. Here, the differential diagnosis is pulmonary edema, alveolar proteinosis, and pneumocystis infection. And special stains will help you. When you do see the expanded alveoli with completely filling up the material, and you see the chunky material. Okay, so and this is what I told, a cracking artifact. So this is a picture of alveolar proteinosis. Whereas in our case, you can see the nice organism in the silver stain. Okay, so this is PJP, what I call for pneumocystis Jervosi pneumonia. Okay, when yesterday I checked, it is a fungus. Between fungus and parasite, it is keeps on traveling, but today it is fungus. Okay, pneumocystis Jervosi. It may form foamy alveolar cas, diffuse alveolar damage, miliary disease, cavity sepsis, but predominantly it is present with the foamy alveolar cas. Moving to case number 5, history is breathing difficulty in 27-year-old male, and this is the gross specimen. You can see a very solid, this looks more like a fibroid, isn't it? Fibroid in the uterus. And when you see fibroid in the lung with the pushing margin, it is not invading margin. Two tumors are in the differential diagnosis. One is solitary fibrous tumor, other one is sclerosing pneumocytoma, previously called as sclerosing hemangioma. Okay, so this is the differential. Let us see the slides. Ashwini, slide check.
All good, sir.
Are you feeling bored, Ashwini? You don't mind, no?
No,
Super. So this is a section taken from a bronchi, near the bronchi, and you can see the lobulated lesion. Now we are coming to pattern 5. Hereafter, it's only pattern 5. Okay, so for pattern 1, I don't have a slide. For pattern 2, I had UIP. For pattern 3, we had aspiration pneumonia, PCP, aspergillus, mucor, and coccidioidomycosis. For pattern 4, we had pneumocytoma. Sorry, we have pneumocystis, PCP or PJP, and this is pattern 5. Nodular lesions. Here you can see slit-like spaces. Okay, so it is looking both pink and blue, but well circumscribed. When you go to high power, it's predominantly sclerosis in the stroma. There are only very few epithelial lined cystic spaces, and not only this mature respiratory epithelium, these are entrapped airways, whereas the lesion is mainly making cysts with lining pneumocytes. Okay, So these are all the pneumocytes, and you can see dense sclerosis. This is a glandular space, and this is a glandular space, and you can see dense sclerosis with a lot of plasma cells. You can just move around. You can see the glandular spaces. You can see the sclerosis, and you can see the plasma cells. I think I can go. I'm just playing some tricks with you guys. Thank you for putting up with me. I love this. See the plasma cells, how crystal clear they are seen. Okay, so these are the epithelial cells. So this is more like a biphasic epithelial cell, stromal cells with a dense lymphoplasmacytic or predominantly plasmacytic infection. I hope you can see the glandular epithelium. See, most of the glandular epithelium are round, they are not angulated. That's very, very important. Just to keep it in mind. Now we can come back to slides. All those epithelium are positive for EMA, and the epithelium as well as some of the stromal cells are positive for TTF, whereas EMA is positive only in the epithelium. So this is a very diagnostic of sclerosing pneumocytoma. Previously, people misinterpreted these as blood vessels. That's why they call this sclerosing hemangioma. But as these cells are positive for TTF, they are arising from pneumocytes, so they are known as pneumocytoma. And because of the dense sclerosis and inflammation, these are known as sclerosing pneumocytoma. Few words about pneumocytoma. As I told you, they are called as sclerosing hemangioma. Solid peripheral mass. I told you it looks like a leiomyoma. The other differential diagnosis is solitary fibrous tumor. Mixed growth pattern can be seen, can be confused with adenocarcinoma because of the glandular epithelium. Mix of the surface cells and the interstitial round cells, which I showed you in the stroma. And the epithelial cells are positive for EMA and TTF, whereas stromal cells are positive for TTF. Genetic, nowadays for all the conditions you should know what is the molecular background, because it can have some target to treat. So they have a AKT1 mutation in 80% of pneumocytoma. Remember, I told you this is a concept slide. I want all of you to take a picture of this. I'll wait for 5 seconds. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So whenever you see glands, you have to divide them whether they are invasive glands or non-invasive glands. The invasive glands are having angulated with the loss of alveolar architecture. They will show desmoplasia. They may show multilayering or micropapillae and high-grade cytology. Whereas non-invasive glands are usually round with the uniform size, shape, and distribution, no stratification, and they show low-grade cytology. I'll just go to the previous slide, just to go over that. Meantime, I will get some water. What's the time, Ashwini? How are we doing?
Sir, here from the delegate, Dr. Chavan, you are doing absolutely fine. Good going, sir.
Super, pa. Thank you, Chavan. Oh, sir. How are you, sir?
Fine, fine, sir.
I get excited after seeing you. You might have told Ramesh. I was really thinking of a student. You look like a student, but after seeing you, you are Dr. Ramesh, my dear brother and friend.
Thank you, sir.
Thanks for coming. Thank you for coming, sir. So now let us go to the some theory part of it. Since we talked about starting the tumors, what is the WHO classification of lung tumors? In 2004, life was very simple. On H&E, we have to say whether it is small cell, non-small cell. In the non-small cell, is adenocarcinoma, squamous cell carcinoma, or neuroendocrine carcinoma, or large cell carcinoma. No IHC. Whereas in 2015, they introduced IHC in the WHO classification. And the large cell carcinoma, depending upon the positivity, they are divided into subtypes. For example, when a large cell carcinoma is positive for TTF, it's a solid type of adenocarcinoma. When it is positive for P63 or P40, it will be a non-keratinizing squamous cell carcinoma. When it is positive for synaptophysin and chromogranin, those are all the old neuroendocrine markers. Now we have a armamentarium of newer markers. Probably you might have seen one with Dr. Sandhya Madam, insulinoma associated protein, INSM1, that is the new neuroendocrine marker. When it is positive, it is large cell neuroendocrine carcinoma. When all markers are negative, in the lung also, like in breast, it is a triple negative or null IHC type, large cell carcinoma or large cell carcinoma NOS. This is 2015. The same thing is maintained in 2021.